Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, former owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona, a licensed contractor still though. And with me this week is Natalie Hall of Artistry and Tile from Hudson, Wisconsin. I have a feeling that if you blink, you might miss this town. I looked it up. It's not super tiny, but it's tiny. It's on the border there over by Minneapolis, I want to say.
Yep.
And so we are going to talk about, she feels she's on an extreme roller coaster ride. And I remember being there, starting the business, and it's new and it's exciting and it's frustrating and it's everything that you can describe as an emotion all at once, and yet it's not. It's up and down and left and right and all over the place. And how do you navigate it? How do you figure it out? How do you do it? Because everyone's telling you the only way to make money in a trade is, hey, you got to go out on your own. You got to be your own boss. You got to do this thing. And yet what nobody is telling you is how to do that. You can know how to do the skill really, really well, but that doesn't mean you know how to sell it, what to charge, how to schedule and manage it, all of those other things. And nobody realizes how many extra hats you have to put on to run a business as opposed to go work for someone else. So we're going to be discussing that today. And she's got a, long history here of at 12, she started helping dad. And then she went and got some other, in the trades. So she was learning flooring and tile and all of that. 16, she went off, worked at a restaurant for many years, did all the positions in there, from serving, hostess, in the back, doing management stuff. Later went on to work for Big Brown, and then was probably poached by somebody that has a red bullseye. Big Brown is a shipping company. You can figure out which one is Big and Brown. And then there's a company that is retail and has a red bullseye. And they like to poach management from Big Brown. It happens quite a lot. I actually was offered a position and turned it down and told them I want the job with the least amount of responsibility in the interview. And I was still hired. It was rather comical to me. So she's got management experience at Fortune 500 companies. Went to get her, I can only assume that she wanted to be, her inner creative needed to be let free. And so then she was doing cake baking and decorating at a restaurant again, and came full circle and then said, you know what? I don't want to do any of this. And she went back and started doing tile and absolutely fell in love with it this time and said, this is the thing I want to do. I'm here. I'm in it to win it. And here we are. Now what do we do? She definitely has a flair for more of the artistry side, hence Artistry and Tile. She's got a beautiful mosaic she just put out where she put like poppy flowers into a niche. It looks absolutely amazing. But, not everyone's doing these custom small pieces and incorporating them. It's let me slap up 12 by 24s or whatever it's going to be, ho hum. Same with LVP, right? You slap down some 9 by 60s or 7 by 48s. It's a rectangle, call it a day, and you don't always get to have that creative side really express itself, and it can be frustrating, especially as someone that has that flair. You start running a business expecting that I can do all of these fancy things,
right?
And it's kind of a letdown, and then it just frustrates you even more. So we're going to talk about all of that, because I know as the audience, you are probably experiencing some of that as well. And that's why we're here. Is Floor Academy wants to have these business discussions every week so that you can start applying the things to make your life easier. It doesn't have to be hard. There are people willing to share and help you grow in business. Rising tide lifts all ships. There's the quote going around as well of there's only competition at the bottom. The people at the top are collaborating. And I think all of that's true. So that's why we're here. That's what we do here. Before I have Natalie introduce herself, we've got for me, you do me a favor. Can you like and subscribe? Go subscribe on Apple or Spotify so that this comes to you every week. Let somebody know. You're my marketing team. I don't have a budget for that yet. I'm working on it. So in the meantime, if you can go tell a friend or a colleague or the person in line behind you as you're picking up materials what this show has done for you, I would very much appreciate that. If you want to help support the show financially, you can do so at patreon.com/Floor Academy. And even $5 a month goes a long way in helping me to continue to produce the content. Let's see. We've got a quick word from Cronus Software. If your flooring business is giving you headaches, Cronus is the remedy you need. Cronus Flooring Business Manager is an easy-to-use and affordable solution that simplifies and streamlines your business operations, managing everything from leads and inventory to scheduling installations all in one user-friendly platform. What sets Cronus apart is its comprehensive suite of features, ease of navigation, and full integration with QuickBooks. Don't let your business be a headache. Choose Cronus for a smoother, headache-free business management experience. Visit cronusoft.com/academy today to schedule a demo. Cronus, fast relief for your flooring business headaches. And it will make running your business easier because you can track your leads. It's all on a web-based platform, so you can access it from anywhere. You don't need a server. You can get it on your iPad. You can get it on your desktop. You can make it work on your phone, although it's not as pretty, but get an iPad. You need one anyways. It'll help you out, I promise. But, accessible anywhere, and then you can bang out estimates right there and then you can also integrate it with QuickBooks and send that off, and you can immediately start figuring out profitability, because who doesn't want to know they're making money? All right, that's enough out of me. Natalie, welcome to the show. Who are you?
Thank you.
What do you do, and why do you do it?
Well, first of all, thank you for getting me here, because I don't think I would have done this willingly. Not too much of a public speaker. So I know you keep saying that this is just me and you, but I know I listen to the show, so I know that it's going out to other people, and I just, it's still in my head. But, so thank you for having me. I'm Natalie Hall. I'm out of Hudson, Wisconsin. It is pretty much a suburb of the Twin Cities, Minnesota. I always say I'm from Minnesconsin because it's we're right on the border. I'm basically in Minnesota. I do work over there. I do work in both. So, call it both. But like you said, I've had the whole broad work history. Kind of took it everywhere. I went restaurant. I went warehouse. I went back and forth in the trades. But here we are. I came back because ultimately I think this is what I was most passionate about the entire time. Anytime I would talk about it in the past, people are saying wow, you just light up when you talk about tile and all the details of it and that kind of stuff. So It is something that I love doing. I love working with my hands. I love working with power tools. It kind of, makes me feel like a badass sometimes, but I love doing tile, and I do have a little bit of a artsy side sometimes. So cake baking was really great for that, but I just hated the environment, hated the pressure and some of the people that I was working with. And so I kind of, reworked the whole tile mentality in my brain, and not, when I was working with my dad, we were doing a lot of commercial work. And so I think that's kind of why I got burnt out of it, because we were doing so much monotonous, boring stuff. And so I just got really sick of that. And so now coming back into it on my own, I'm kind of reworking, how I want to do it. And I want to do a lot more of the artistic side, doing, the hand cut mosaics and that kind of stuff. So
Well,
now I have the passion for it. I just trying to avoid the burnout.
Well, and how do you not burn out when you have to wear every hat and you feel like you're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And really you are. And it's a matter of how do we manage this and scale it back to make as much use out of the time we have available as possible, while not going insane. I think the most important question is you said you're from Minna, Wisconsin. And so you're on the border. And you definitely probably spend more time in the Twin Cities than you do in Wisconsin for work and whatnot. So
100%.
Vikings or Packers?
So I've been a Vikings fan my whole life. And that kind of killed my whole football passion.
Sacrilege.
Kind of
How
hard to be a
could you?
Vikings fan these days.
You're from Wisconsin. This is unacceptable.
I was born in Minnesota.
All
I
right.
lived in
Okay.
Minnesota the first years of my life. I feel like that counts.
Okay. All right. Fine. Fair enough. I
Also,
like.
purple and gold is just way better than green and gold. So
All
it's the
right.
colors for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm a Packers fan, but only because I was forcibly moved to Illinois when I was 11, and I didn't want to, and so I knew the best thing to do to piss everyone off around me would be to be a Packers fan. So
So
I
true.
became one out of spite, and it was great.
Nice.
It made everyone very angry. And the Cardinals just have traditionally, they're just like the worst. So, it's hard to support a team that's bad. But, all right. So big background in commercial work, like you said, monotonous, boring. So what made you want to go out on your own, and what are you trying to sell and where currently?
Going out on my own it was a complex decision. For one thing, I don't want to get too into this, but my dad and I's relationship is just not as good as it used to be. And we just kind of clash on a lot of ideals, values, that kind of thing. And so it just wasn't really working to work together. Scheduling was always a big issue. Like sometimes it'd be waking up the day of and be like, are we working today or not? And he was like, I don't know. And go to work at like noon. And so it's just like, I can't really live my life like that.
Well, we forgot to mention. So you are a mom. So there is a child involved here, and that plays a huge factor in being able to run a business and spend time with them and want to, okay.
Very neurodivergent child. So it's like 3 child in one, really.
Okay.
So
the working at noon and then not being home until 8 or 9 just isn't going to work when that's part of the equation here.
Right. And so that was a huge piece of it too. Now that he's in school, it helps a lot because there's a more structured window on my working hours, but it's a very structured window. I have until from 9 o'clock in the morning after I drop him off till 3:30 when I have to pick him up. Like I'm doing every drop off pickup, every day of the week. So it limits my window. So if he's booking commercial jobs out in Minneapolis and I'm driving an hour, that's 2 hours out of my work day that I'm not getting paid for, and just kind of I don't know, it's very limited. I'm just really trying to focus on getting jobs around here, so that schedule works a little better.
Okay. And where are you trying to promote yourself, and what are you trying to promote? Is it just, obviously the company's name is Artistry and Tile, so I'm assuming we're putting a focus there, but are you accepting projects from other areas? You said you have LVP experience or laminate, hardwood, like you can do other stuff. So are you doing that, or are you honed in like, I just want to do the tile stuff, that's where I'm sticking?
I'll tell people that I can do both, if they're asking, or if there's like they have both being needed in a bathroom or in their house, somewhere, I'll offer it. But I typically will tell people that I'm really trying to focus on just doing tile. So, at this point, this has kind of been the hardest part for me is like my dad is word of mouth, strictly word of mouth, has no advertising, no social media, no, not going into designers or anything like that. He gets his work from one of the design showrooms in Minneapolis, Hammernix. And then otherwise it's word of mouth. So hard to ask someone like that questions on marketing and advertising when they don't do it. So getting out there, like I started the Facebook page and Instagram, but that's, I'm getting following, but it's mostly like other tile contractors or other people in the industry that are following. I have met with a couple of realtors that got me 2 little backsplash jobs.
Okay.
I have been meeting with a tile distribution company. There's a handmade artisan tile company out of Northeast Minneapolis called Mercury Mosaics.
Okay.
And I've loved them since the first time I heard of them. My dad's done a couple of jobs for them way back in the day, so I helped him on those. And then I just fell in love with the company. wanted to go work there for a little bit, but she's like, yeah, just send in a portfolio of like some stuff that you've done, and we'll look it over and stuff. I was like, I don't have a portfolio. I don't have any of this stuff done, so I didn't feel like I was able to go in there and
Okay.
say I want to work there. But I actually just had a meeting with them the other day though, and now that I've done a couple things, I feel more confident in myself and my business. It was actually a really great meeting. I met with the whole sales team, and they put me at the top of their like installer reference list. So
Okay.
that was a really productive meeting, and I think that definitely gave me a lot more confidence in putting myself out there to
Hmm.
those kind of places. So
Do you feel there's like a big custom market in your area or is it that it's maybe untapped because nobody's advertising it and so they don't know that it's an option?
yeah, I feel like that's kind of the biggest hurdle is like people just don't know this stuff exists.
Hmm.
People tend to go for what other people are doing, and I think that's with what's trending now is gray LVP, gray and white tiles in the shower, just very minimalist, very basic, because that's the resale on, that's how you get good value on your resale of
Yeah.
the house. Um, and that's kind of a big thing right now is people are flipping their houses. So it's kind of hard to push the artisan side because you got to like really direct market to the people who want this stuff, and
Hmm.
that's the hardest part for me is just finding who wants this stuff in their house, and I haven't really tapped into that yet. So
Okay. So let's think about that. Okay. So if that's what we're doing, is I always like trying to help people find ideal clients because that's really what you're after. And so
right.
who is someone that's going to want something custom, right? It's probably going to be someone that's not changing out of their house anytime soon, so they're going to invest in themselves. I also always tell people, you're the one buying it, so why are you trying to appease someone else? Like, especially if they're telling me that,
Yeah.
I'm going to be in my house 10 or 20 years, and they're like, well, I want it for resale. 10 or 20
Right.
years, the market's going to be totally different. The trends are going to be totally different. You're paying for it. You might as well get something you enjoy and let somebody
Yeah.
else
Live in your house.
worry about it.
Make it enjoyable for you.
Yes. And so I think that's needs to be part of the discussion. People that want artsy stuff, right? They're anyone that can afford an extra like that is more than likely somewhat affluent and has
Yeah.
disposable income. They can go and spend it on other stuff. So
Right.
I'm looking for I got to find the equivalent of when we went, like my son did Cub Scouts and we had to sell popcorn, and we always did really, really well at Bass Pro Shop. You don't generally go to Bass Pro Shop if you don't have disposable income. I mean, there's plenty of fun
Right.
stuff to look at,
Oh yeah.
but you're not walking out of there with a gun or a bunch of fishing gear or a boat or like whatever it is, all the camping supplies. That's all disposable income. And so what is the equivalent of like if that's a 30 to 50-year-old male walking in there, what does the missus have, right? Like where do the commonalities of like this is the man she picks and this is what he's into? And I
Right.
think that's what you need to start working on discovering is where does Mrs. Jones hang out and do in your community when she has extra cash, right? Is it
Right.
a pickleball obsession? Because that seems to be all the rage these days.
So true.
Is there like a artist community to where there's unveilings of custom art pieces going on and there's big events and they're happening there? Like what can you do and find within Hudson or the neighboring towns where people that appreciate fine art are doing? And I think if you can go tap into that, those are the people you're going to want to know.
Yeah. That is a very good point. And we do have a pretty good like artistic community. Hudson's getting there, but right across the river in Stillwater, they've been kind of known for like the little like small town artsy kind of stuff, very
Hmm.
historic town. Um, so I have been seeing like some shows and stuff popping up now that I'm kind of doing more research on it. Like the shows will start popping up in my feed and stuff like that. Um, so that is kind of on my radar to get into like like a home and garden show or like a a renovation show, like home improvement show, that kind of thing.
Oh, I would say that I think that stuff's great for like finding your average ho-hum projects. But I'm talking like, is there like somebody that's gonna appreciate like a painting? Like, is there like a place that, you know, the affluent are hanging out and there's like an artist reveal, right? Here's all their new works of art. And I would go to like an evening there and start chatting with people, because if they appreciate that, why wouldn't they appreciate having a custom piece built into their shower or their floor or their backsplash? Yeah. That's true. Like, I think it's going to be something like that for you, of they're going to you just have to present it as, hey, look, you really like this piece of art? Like, what if I could do it over here for you? And so you start hanging out with them because that's where they're at. That's what they're looking at. Now we just have to show them that, hey, there's other things that exist. And so they're probably going to remodel the bathroom for the 15th time in 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I will say the poppy piece that I did, mm-hmm. she was a family friend, so I felt a lot more comfortable being like, hey, I've never done this before, but I think, you know, this kind of piece would look really cool in your shower. So she totally went for it right off the bat. I just, you know, did a little mock-up on the table mm-hmm. as we were installing the rest of the shower, and she totally went for it. But it's, you know, we were already on that job. We were already in there doing it, and then I kind of presented it. So mm-hmm. I feel like that just kind of went pretty easily. But, yes, you know, it's just, I need to get it out there before people are even hiring me to say, like, you know, this is my selling piece. This is what I want to do.
Well, I think,
and I just need to get better at selling it, I think, and verbalizing it. And because, you know, the clientele that is more affluent, they want to see more professionalism or more, like, I don't know, confidence, I guess, in what they're buying.
I agree. I mean, I think when you can show up and you are extremely confident and almost to the, not an extreme level of like arrogance, but just a smidge, right? You added a smidge of arrogance and people get really interested all of a sudden because you're just confident and feel good. I think a tool that's not utilized enough is having like a portfolio book. And because the advent of the internet, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'll just show you on my phone, or, you know, and with cell phones and all of that, everyone's like, well, it's on my website or it's here. People used to be able to, like, you would go into a bid and, like, if you don't want them following you around and explaining everything, give them something to do. So here's a book. I'm going to go measure the shower. You take a look through it. If there's something you like, let me know, right? Now they can flip through and they can see 12 by 24s and 24 by 48s, and they can see Subway, and they can see that there's a, you know, envelope pan and a curbless shower, and that there's mosaics in set, right? Now they start thinking, oh, wait, I want a bench, and I want the bench to have a mosaic in it. Like, can you do that? What's that look like? How much does this cost? So you have to plant the seed before they do it. And I don't know that enough people are utilizing those tools. They just expect, nobody wants to sell anymore. They just want to be told, like, here's what I want. Now write that up and tell me how much it's going to cost.
Pick it, I stick it is the going mentality. Like, oh, well, that was the client's decision. They wanted it that way. Well, you're the expert in this industry. Why aren't you telling them that looks stupid? You know, I hate that. Go. Like, well, they decided. It's like, okay, well, you've seen enough tile work in your day, I'm sure, to know that was going to turn out poorly. So
exactly. I mean, you get it, right? So now you just go, you can force the sale by planting the seed. And it doesn't have to be a huge price difference. Oftentimes it's not, but people think it. Oh my gosh, it's custom. Yeah. It's got to be so expensive.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, look, when I was still selling floors, it was always like, well, the whole project's $20,000, and they'd be like, oh man, like, well, what if I like remove the carpet myself? It's like, you're gonna save like $600, right? Like, that's not where the cost of the project is. So you can kill yourself and do it, or you can just pay me. Or they would be like, well, I don't know if I really want new baseboards. What's that gonna cost me? It's like, the difference in price is the cost of the baseboard. You have like 350 linear feet. The baseboards are $1.50. We're talking like $500. Like, oh, that's it?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And no matter what, you have to paint. So you're buying the paint and doing the labor there anyways as well. Oh, well, okay. Let's just add the $500 on $20,000 is nothing. Like, just go get the sale, right? And I think a mosaic would be the same way. Sure, it's going to add money, but if they truly see the value in it and they really want that custom piece, $500, $1,000, $1,500, whatever it's going to end up being, that's not destroying the project. And they opted for it, right? They saw it. They fell in love with the idea. It wasn't you presenting it and asking for more. It's them finding it and saying, oh, I want this. So I think that makes a huge difference as well in being able to gain that upsell, as opposed to, well, I walked in and they didn't ask about it, so I can't sell it. It's just, it's silly.
So I will say that did just happen. One of the guys that I took my CTI test with has actually been kind of like selling me my work on the side and showing his clients, some of the stuff that I've done. Since he's kind of local to here, so we can collaborate on that kind of stuff. But he showed his client and she was like, all for the idea of putting a little mosaic piece in her 12 by 12 shower niche. And she came up with this like really elaborate, kind of like boho bouquet type of thing with the feathers and the flowers. And just, she's like, I don't need it to be this complicated, but let's, see what she can come up with. So I did a little like mock-up, and I sent it back over to them with the price of, I think I said, $1,500 initially. I dropped it down to $900 because that was a little outside of our budget. I'm always willing to work with someone's budget, and I think that's kind of the biggest piece too. Is like, I will drop the level of complexity down if you want to pay less. I won't. It won't be as cool as the original idea, but like I'm willing to work with you on that. So I dropped it down to $900. Still didn't want to do it. I was like, okay, I can't go lower than that. That's this is a lot of time. And it's a lot of complex work, and people aren't just putting these out everywhere. So like I need to value myself a little bit at least.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that you said that you were going to change. I was worried because you're like, I dropped the price because it was out of her budget, but then you were like, I changed how the scope of work would be to meet that. Yep. And oftentimes that's the biggest mistake is, well, I really want it. I'm hungry. I have to do it. No, you don't. Because if you do it for too cheap, then the next person's going to want it for that price, and the next person, it builds and builds. And the way I look at it, I don't think any business can run profitably, especially like in the trades, for less than $100 an hour. Although I was saying that when I started this 4 years ago, so we're probably at least 125 now, which means if you're not able to do that in 7-ish hours, start to finish, you're losing money. So I don't see that being the case. These things take way too long.
Yeah. And I mean, I realize that I'm probably going to be losing a little bit of money on some of these more custom projects, but to me, it doesn't feel like losing money because I am enjoying the entire process. I'm enjoying the creative, like, to me, it's kind of my creative outlet. Like, yes, it's being paired with business, which kind of like taints it a little bit, but like, I love sitting there and just mapping out and creating, the piece and then getting on the ring saw right here and like cutting it out. Like I could do that for hours. And so it doesn't really bother me as much. I know that I'm losing a little bit of money, but I think like, at least at first, getting the exposure is kind of a priceless thing as well. Obviously it doesn't pay my bills and get food on the table, but like it does get my name out there and does get this type of work out there so that people are more like aware of it, I guess.
I think there's a very fine line there in that you're like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to lose money to get exposure. But again, if you set the standard that this thing costs X amount, you're setting the standard too low moving forward. And it can be hard to move prices up, especially in a smaller area. And so there's this fine line of like, I need to make money and be able to do it. Because that's the whole point. Like, why run a business if you're not going to make money? I mean, you can run a business and break even, but they're not non-profits. They're not for profits. Okay. Yeah. So they're not going to end up with profit. They're going to spend everything back and give it back to the community or invested in being able to further their mission. It's totally misunderstood what it is. They still can make money. They just can't keep it, right? And so you can't run a business in the negative. And if you're doing a bunch of work and it's not providing so that you can take care of your son and yourself and your family and pay the bills, it defeats the purpose. And so there's a really fine line there of trying to balance being able to run your business and do the fancy stuff you want to do while not going broke and giving it away. And I think managing that becomes extremely difficult of, all right, where do I need to be? Especially when you're offering super custom pieces. It's not everyone wants it. And so now it's like, I have that skill, but you also don't want to go and install the 15th 3x5 tub surround with 12x24s or subways for the 100th time. Like, it's just, I get it. It's very mundane and boring, and it doesn't excite you. And then you get bored and you don't want to be there. So how do you know?
That's where the whole roller coaster comes in. It's like, I love this so much. I want to do this, and I get so excited about it. And I'm like way up here. And then it's like, oh yeah, I don't want to pay for that. And then just, then I plummet. And then it's like, well, why am I even doing this? Why am I even trying to put this out there? Because no one's going to do this. No one wants to pay this much money for it.
But they do.
And then I'm like, okay. Then I start building my confidence up a little bit. Like I find, a couple jobs, people that want it. And then it's like, okay, it's just so up and down. And I should mention I have severe ADHD, so I feel like that plays into pretty much all of this.
For sure.
Managing a business, having to wear all those hats, having to you have to be very organized with the accountant stuff, the books, the receipts, the schedule, everything. That's always been a hard thing for me, and I think that's kind of why I kept going away from this trade and going to work for somebody, because they do all that. You don't have to worry about scheduling and all the HR crap and like all the client relations, that kind of stuff. It's just a lot easier to turn off your brain and go do a mindless job. But
yes,
I do like, that has its pros and cons. Like I do like this for that reason, because I do get to wear a lot more hats, and I do get to, I think having more responsibilities gives me a better sense of like satisfaction, a better sense of confidence, I guess, saying that I am doing all of these things, and it's not easy.
Yes, definitely. Well, and I think you can harness ADHD to be a superpower because you have to bounce between so many different hats. But we'll get into that in just one second. Real quick word from Johns Manville. Compatible with all GoBoard products is the new GoBoard membrane. If you're asking why a membrane when GoBoard itself is waterproof through and through, the answer is simple. A membrane extends your GoBoard installation for mud pans, steam rooms, and shared walls, requiring a fire-rated board under the waterproofing. Now, who's going to be the most badass GoBoard installer out there? You are. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for all the product details. Don't forget to check out their other products, from drains and shower pans, foam pans. They got wedges, so you can do fancy envelope stuff. And, a generous warranty where you can use other sealants if you can't get GoBoard sealant. So they make it easy to win. All right. So you're talking about, I got ADHD, and it's hard. Like, I like being able to show up somewhere and just be told you're an employee, go do these things. But I think that there's, being able to bounce between everything lets you win. Because you're naturally like you're going to grab something and like hyper focus on it for a few minutes, and then you're going to be like, oh, well, I got to go do this thing. And you can do that.
Yep.
We do have to wear a lot of hats. And so if you can find a way to kind of schedule your day to let you bounce through those things in increments of like, that like you can only handle something for 15 minutes, then do your books for 15 minutes. And then say, I'm going to go market for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to work on my schedule for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to advertise for 15 minutes, or I'm going to, whatever it is, right? You can, in the evenings, you can do that. But the fact that you're even looking at it, how many contractors do you know just have a stack of receipts that they hand to a tax guy at the end of the year? And it's like, well, you figure it out. Here you go. And they haven't set any money aside. They don't know anything. And so then they find out in March that come April, they owe $10,000, and the next multiple projects go to start paying that tax burden. So you're thinking about it, which means you're already ahead of the curve. So congratulations.
Well, because I learned the hard way from someone I used to work for, that, that happens. And he got into a lot of big trouble with that. and not being prepared and not having it together and not having, organized receipts and organized paperwork to give to his accountant. So
Yeah, it
I've
gets
seen what
ugly
not
quick.
to do.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of overwhelmed now with, what do I do? I know what not to do, but like, what do I do? And
I
that's kind of been the
this
hard
is
part.
this is where I think hiring it out is best, right? You go interview a couple of bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are cheap. They they're just as bad at business as us construction workers. Guaranteed. There are plenty of them that do. I'm actually working with my bookkeeper now, and she just sent out a letter after. Let's see, she's been doing my books for 5 years. No, let's see. She started in 19. 5 years, 6 years, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And I've told her the whole time, you don't charge enough. You don't charge enough. You don't charge enough. So she's recently hired me, and I'm working with her. She just sent out a letter, and effectively the way it is it like triples her rates from where she's at now. It's insane, and not a single client has left.
That's cool.
So she's like left all this money on the table this entire time because they value her so much. But I think the average bookkeeper, I just saw a statistic, it's like $60 an hour. Like, it's
Okay.
not expensive to have your books done, right? You send
Yeah.
all your receipts and invoices off, and most small contractors, I think when I started, it was maybe 20 receipts a month between the invoices and my transactions. Like, it's not a lot. It doesn't take somebody a long time. And you're
Right.
like, well, I can do it myself. You can, but do you understand it? Like, I go hire the person to do it. It's going to cost you $60, $100, $150 at most, probably. So if you can charge
But
a
it'll
hundred,
save the headache of trying to figure it out for the 6 hours that you sit there on
correct,
QuickBooks trying to figure it out.
exactly. It would take you multiple hours. It takes them 1 hour. So you freed up all of that time to go sell a project, which
Yeah.
means you should end up making money because now you've sold a project in that amount of time, which means you can afford to hire the bookkeeper, and they're the experts. So you sit down, you hand it off to them, and then you say, well, I don't understand. Explain it to me. Can we set up a meeting this Friday? I'm going to come down. Can we sit down for an hour? You go over it with me. You don't have to know how to do it. You just have to understand how it's done, right?
Yeah.
Why does this make sense? Why does this transaction have to balance against this transaction? You just need to understand it. You don't need to know how to make QuickBooks do it. You just need to be able to get the reports and say, oh, everything looks good. And, I'm making money or I'm losing money. Now I know what to do with my numbers, and I need to charge more or charge less, and then you can start making those decisions. And I don't know that enough people I can't, they're going to steal my money. They can't steal your money if you don't give them access to be able to steal your money.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, when you go to the tax guy, if you hand your tax guy a box of receipts, he charges you a whole hell of a lot more money, a whole hell of a lot more, because he now has to create your books based on the receipts. And he's in crunch time, which means his time is at a premium right now. So you don't want that. Whereas I go to my tax guy, I hand over a couple sheets of paper that say, here's all my stuff. It's all done and figured out. Here's the numbers. Type them in and make it go. And it's only a couple $100 to get it done. So, there's positives and negatives here. But, finding a way to leverage your time so that you can do the more valuable tasks, and hiring people to do lower level tasks is great. And so that's one way to do it. But then the other part of it is okay, well, you need to figure out a schedule. All right, well, sit down and figure it out. Spend the 10, 20 minutes, right? And again, you can focus on that, and then you can go get distracted and be like, well, I worked on it. Like, I can go do something else, and then come back to it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is the biggest piece right now that I'm kind of avoiding, is just sitting down and putting it all on a schedule. I have the planner, it's here, but I just need to open it and do it.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of a challenge. And I know that that's the ADHD talking, and probably just a little bit of, self-doubt and like a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just like, why am I even doing this? I shouldn't be running my own business. I can't do it. All the voices in my head, talking, but
What are you needing the schedule that you're not wanting to write it down, right? I mean, you know how long a project is roughly going to take, right? Like it's going to be 5 days or 7 days or no?
that honestly, well, because I've been working with someone else. All of my experience in this trade has been with another person there the entire time.
Okay.
So I was getting very frustrated actually on the first couple jobs that I took on my own and how long it was taking me. And I was like, I just kind of felt like a failure because I'm like, this, 30 square foot backsplash should not be taking me 3 days to finish. What the hell? And I just kind of got,
Okay.
I don't know, I got frustrated and I just didn't
That's not
see
that
the whole
bad,
picture,
though.
I guess.
Correct. Well, okay, so let's step back, right? I think a lot of people do this because you're right. They get used to working with somebody and it goes faster, and you were knocking out a backsplash in a single day or day and a half instead of
Yeah.
3 days. So one, double everything, if not a
Yeah.
little bit more than that, because you're having to make all of the extra work. There's a lot of lost downtime and walking back and forth and thinking through things and trying
Picking
to
up
figure it out on your
material,
own.
all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
there's tons and tons of stuff that you're picking up, and so if a 3x5 was taking a week, it's 2 weeks, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? They either go for it or they don't. They see the value or they don't. And I was always asked, well, how long is it going to take you? Well, this many days. Everyone else is saying this many. Sure, they work with a crew. I work by myself. I was like, but that comes with the guarantee that I'm the only one touching the work, and the only person you have to trust is me. So I used it to my advantage as a sales tool. And if I was ever going to grow the company, I would have started talking about the advantage of, hey, I have your house screwed up shorter because I have people that I've trusted and trained in the position to do it. They've all learned under me, right? I can switch the marketing any way I want to build value as I see fit. It's just how I word it. And you can be in the same boat. There's value in you being the only one doing it. So pitch the benefits of that. Sure, it takes longer. Big deal. I guarantee everything. I can know that I'm the only one that's touched it. I don't have to worry about did someone do something right or not. And if you double it, if it's 3 days for a backsplash, it's 3 days. But you can pad out your schedule too. And here's the thing, like I was kind of doing that at first, as I was bidding things to take a little bit longer. If I finish early, you look like a hero. They're happy you're gone sooner. But then you also have a day of being down. And well, yes, we all want to make money. I was making money. We were doing okay. So it wasn't like the end of the world to be down a day. But then I was able to sit down and say, all right, let me work on the books today. Let me work on advertising today. Let me figure out new messaging. Right. Like it gives you the time to do that, because once I got busy, then I was just completely overwhelmed and trying to keep the show running because I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Right.
And then I was scheduling down days to do deliveries. I would know that I knew what a project would take at that point, but then I would have 3 projects worth of materials to deliver, and I'd have to schedule. At first I was trying to do it in the middle of everything, and I was like finishing a project and rushing off at 3 p.m. to go down to the distributor, pick up all the materials and get them delivered that evening. Well, now I'm out late and I'm not seeing my kids, which sucks. You have to be home to get your son. So It was like, okay, I have to schedule days, right? Okay, well, here's a 4-day project. So I have Friday free. Like, I'm going to schedule 2 or 3 deliveries to do Friday during the hours I have available. I'll go get them done. And it gives me a little bit more of a relaxing day, but I still got done what I needed. I still made money. I charged for the deliveries because it takes my time. And it all worked out. And I think that it's just finding the balance and knowing what you can do. I don't think a lot of people are charging for deliveries. They're like, well, it's part of the job. I just got to go pick it up. No, it's not.
Yeah.
They bought materials elsewhere. You touch them now, so you're liable for them, which means there's an incurred cost. Because if you're driving and you have that pallet of flooring that you didn't make any money on attached to your trailer, and you get T-boned and it all breaks, who's paying for that? Because it's not the client.
Right.
It's coming out of your pocket, right? So the minute you touch it, you own it. You need to charge something for handling it. It's not part of the project. It's additional. Installing it is what you bid on. You didn't bid on having to pick it up. So there's like, it's little things like that of learning to make your life easier. Because I would stress about that stuff too. You don't know what you don't know, and what you need. What you need.
Biggest piece.
What you need to know is no matter what you're doing, you are selling your time. Every minute of every day is being sold, whether you keep it for yourself and you decide not to make any money and you get the investment of I've invested in my husband, my son, my whatever, and that's rewarding and good enough for me. Or you're going out to a client and saying, here's these hours This is what they're worth to me. You either accept it or not. And so if they want you to pick up materials, well, you're selling hours, right? There's got to be a cost. So once you start realizing that no matter what you're doing, you're making an exchange of time for money, it becomes a lot easier, I think, because everything has a price. So what price are you willing to put on it?
Well, I think talking about that with clients, like I've never had to do that in the past. So gaining the confidence to sell, to ask for those upcharges, to ask for that extra money. Like, these people are already spending $3,000 on a shower. Like, how can I charge them, $500 extra just for, putting in a little shower shelf or like a delivery fee or, prep work or whatever. Like, it just feels like I'm nickeling and diming them. And, I don't know. It's gaining the confidence, I guess, to talk about those things in a more positive light that they are,
Let me ask you this. Can you afford one of your showers right now? Okay. That's the problem. Because that was the problem with me. And I think that's the problem with most of us is the day I realized there was money in the bank account and I could afford a floor for myself, something clicked in my brain and I went and I bid projects much more confidently. But it's because I just did an episode, I don't know if you listened to it at the beginning of the year, called Why You Need an FU Bank Account. And that's exactly what it is, right? When you have a financial backing to where you're not dependent upon making sure you get a check at the end of the week so you can pay a bill, there's a huge mindset shift of being able to go in more confidently and be like, that's the cost is the cost, folks. Like, I'm not dealing with it. You want a shelf? It's an extra $300 because the shelf costs $100. I'm going to charge you $150 on it, and it's going to take me an extra hour to install it. And that costs $150 between the materials and the time to do it. End of story. Can't do it for any less. Yeah. And it's just learning those things. But I think being able to go in and if you know the time it takes and the cost, it's going to help you get there. Because you start giving it away. You get very resentful doing the project, knowing that you're doing things you shouldn't be and you're not getting paid. And then you start wanting to rush through them, and you don't provide the quality you promised. Right. So there's a fine balance, but I think knowing going in and just having that conversation of understanding, like, I can't do it for free, will help you be able to do it. Like you have to. It's in your best interest, right? It's always change the scope of work, not the dollar value. So if they don't want to pay $300 for a shelf, okay, well, you don't get a shelf. That's fine. It's not a big deal.
True.
It's learning that as opposed to, what was it? I asked a client once because they wanted a discount and I gave it to them. And this is probably in my first 6 months, maybe a year. And I went and I picked up the deposit check and I was like, I got check in hand, right? This is secured now. They can't take it away from me. It's like, can I ask you guys a question? They were like, sure. I was like, if I wouldn't have lowered the price, would you have gone with me still? Yeah. Fuck. Right. Damn it. Right then and there. Right. And that hurt, but it was a realization. Like I have more worth than what I thought. And I think that's good feedback, right? I'm just trying to, like, I asked from a business perspective of, I need to know this. Because I would ask clients too, like, after they decide to go with me, why'd you decide to go with me over other bids you got, right? I need the feedback so that I can do it. And if I'm losing stuff, I was trying to reach out and ask, like, why didn't you go with me? Like, what can I change to, be better at what I'm doing? And I think that trying to get that feedback is important. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to go in and try and ask questions and learn and gain that confidence. But you're right. It's a confidence thing, but just know that you only have so much time to sell and it has to have a minimum value for you to do this. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. And you're right. You are better off going back and being an employee somewhere.
Yeah.
And so what's that number, right? You figure that out. And if you can't make that work, go, quote unquote, slave away for the man. And you're going to you can find the right place and have it be rewarding still. That's for sure.
Yeah. It can be rewarding, but I obviously there's a lot more money if I want it being on my own than
Done
it is just
correctly, yes.
done correctly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I'm at is like I'm kind of in the midst of, figuring all those little pieces out, figuring out how long it does take me to put it in a shower shelf on my own so I can charge appropriately and
Hmm.
competently, figuring out how long these things take me and if I am making money on it. But everyone always says these things just take time. Like it just takes time, you'll get it. Like it just takes experience. And I'm like, I don't have time. What if I don't have time?
Oh, you
The
do
bills
have
are due
time.
today.
Well, but you can look at past experience, right? Again, like you knew what it took a two-person team,
Yeah.
and you should kind of know how much you added to that, right? I went out on my own, and I knew that I could do roughly X amount by myself. And again, I sandbagged it, knowing that okay, so it was taking us 3 days to do a project, so I got to double that and make it 6, and then I would just add a day to be safe. And I think it shouldn't be that hard for you to figure out time frames per se, and then just know that if you're doing residential projects, whatever you were doing on a commercial project, if you were doing a 1,200 square foot floor, that's probably wide open and there's no obstructions in the way. So
Yeah.
double the time frame, because
Exactly.
now you have a bunch of doorways and cabinets and who knows what in your way to make it happen, and going by yourself isn't always the fastest thing. But I also don't know people that anytime I was running behind, which was rare, but it did happen, and I had to go have that conversation of, hey, things came up, I'm not going to hit it. No one ever got mad. What made people mad, what you always see when you see people like not trusting contractors, is that they're not communicating and they're not telling them, and the project goes on and on for months and months after the fact. But when you communicate and you're clear with them, you say, hey, this came up, I'm going to run a little behind, I can't do it. I should
That's
be
a hard
by
conversation
Friday.
to have, though.
Why?
It brings on, well, I don't know. I guess it just feels a little bit embarrassing, I guess, to not like be doing the things that you said you were going to do, and just kind of, I feel like it gives off the impression that you don't know what you're doing. I don't know.
I mean,
That's where my mentality is at right now.
okay, but would you rather have rushed it and provided them the project that they're not? Like, would you rather if you hired a contractor, would you rather they rush through to get done on time, or would you rather they deliver you the result they promised you, which should be perfection, right? So I think there's a lot of honesty in having that conversation that sets you apart from other people. You're not trying to hide anything. You're going forward and you're saying, look, I'm sorry, I got the timetable a little wrong. I'm not going to, and you're letting them know days in advance. This project's going to take a little bit longer. We're adding a day or 2 days, whatever it's going to be. I just want to make sure that I'm delivering the results that we all agreed upon. And it's so we're going to be done on Friday instead of Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think we build it up inside our heads way more than what actually happens.
Yeah.
And it's just all that head trash. But again, honesty is the best policy for a reason, right? They're going to get upset. Hey, cool. Be upset. This is where we're at. This is what's happening, right? I'm not going to finish. So if you want your house back, it's going to be Friday. And guess what? They just want their damn house back. So, okay, just make it right. It's not going to, you have to swallow your pride and admit to yourself that you didn't get it done when you thought you were going to get it done. But again, like, is that really the big deal? Probably not. If you have 5 other projects lined up behind it, that's when it gets complicated, because now you got to call 5 people and say, hey, we're moving everything by 2 days. And then the next project, you got to call and, okay, we're going to move everything by another 2 days. And that's when I would get stressed out personally, as I was like, I don't want to make that phone call, so I'm going to work a 16-hour day today.
Yeah.
But I doubt right now you're busy enough to have that happening. So it's kind of like one by one by one, but that's perfect, right? You have the 2 days, you have the 3 days if it comes up, and it's,
True.
I'd rather it be done right than rushed personally. And I think just having the conversation, being open about it's going to go a long way. Don't overthink it. Like that's the thing, right? You're in your own head.
I am, and I don't really know where that stems from, but
It's
it's
normal.
it's hard to get out of it when you're in it. So
I think it's totally normal. Like you just because you're so worried, and again, you think it's a big deal because it is a big deal to you because you care, but
yeah,
it's
and I
not.
think I do have that very perfectionist mentality, and I've
Hmm.
always had that. If it's not done right, if it's not done, on time or like in the exact way that it should be done, then it's bad. And I really just I have been a little bit better at breaking that and just kind of not like letting things go or cutting corners, but just letting go of my like anxiety level about it a
Hmm.
little bit. But it's obviously a work in progress.
Again, you're learning a whole new skill, and the
Yeah.
problem is that the skill of business owner is like 10,000 skills.
Right. Yeah.
And it does. It sucks that the answer is it takes time and it takes experience and you have to go through it. But it's like, just know that each little thing, like everything's not as big of a deal as you're making it out to be.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're ripping apart people's homes and they just want it back. And
Yeah.
they're going to prefer it be put back correctly. So a couple of days here and there, probably not a big deal. A couple of dollars more
Sure.
here and there. I think people are afraid to ask for change orders when something comes up. Oh, the whole wall's rotted out. Oh, I can't ask for that. Well, why not? Like, you didn't know it was rotted out. It was hidden behind a wall. I got to rebuild it. You got to go buy all the lumber. I got to drive and get the lumber.
Yeah.
So you can ask for markup on the material, and it's okay that the $4 2 by 4 that you're buying, you're charging them $8 for. They didn't go and pick it up. You did. So you can't, you feel bad, but again, it's because you're like, well, damn, like it's expensive. Like, I don't know that I could afford
Yeah.
it. It ain't your money.
Yeah.
It's their money. This is the
True.
cost of doing the project. We either do it or we don't. And I, now that we've opened it up and done it, I think people feel bad. They're like, oh, I put them in a bad position. Like they don't have a choice. Like I'm bending them over. Sure you do.
Yeah.
The look, we demoed and now we're building out and you don't want to pay. Well, I can't do the project. Here, pay me for this. This is what I did. And now let's walk away. And it's okay to walk away because you shouldn't have to put yourself in a situation where the project is done improperly and you can now be liable for it.
Yeah.
You get one
Right.
chance to ask for the money. Because if it
Right.
fails and you got to go back, you got to pay for everything. And that
Right.
makes no sense.
Right.
So you can't lose money on a project you didn't do. And I think there's
True.
that. If you know that, you can go and it's not as hard to have those conversations. Because if you don't protect artistry and tile, and that's the first thing that makes all the decisions that you're looking out for. If you make the decision from, I need artistry and tile to survive, you have to make the decisions from that perspective. It's not,
Right.
it's not how Natalie feels. It's artistry tile is its own living, breathing entity at this point, right? So it has to come first. And if it does well,
Yeah.
then Natalie does well and the client does well.
Yeah. The mentality of walking away from a job, I think, in the last few months has scared me because obviously there isn't a whole lot of work coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Until very recently, I actually yesterday got 3 jobs put in the books all in the same day, so that was kind of cool.
Nice. Good job.
Thanks. Yeah, one was from the Mercury Mosaics, and then a couple other just like word of mouth. So like I can see the word of mouth,
Mm-hmm.
starting to happen now, which is cool. But before that, like walking away from a job was like I'm walking away from paying my bills right now because this is the only thing that I have, to pay them, and I kind of need it. So
Mm-hmm.
like growing out of that like scarcity mentality, I think has been really helpful, and that's honestly I think manifested some of these jobs because I'm not going to sell myself short, and I'm not going to take just anything that I can get. Like I want the better jobs, and so now that's starting to come.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because actually a couple days ago I was about to like put something on Facebook, just like a little ad or something like discounted backsplashes or something like to start filling my schedule for April. And then I thought about it a little bit and I was like, anytime I see something that is discounted, I'm like, why is that on sale? What's wrong with that product? Why are
There
they
you
trying to
go.
get rid of it at a cheaper
Yes.
price? And I was like, I don't want to sell that. I don't want to have that mentality of like, I need to, just get whatever I can get for these jobs
Hmm.
because, I need it. I'm desperate. Like it looks a little desperate. And I don't think the clients who have this type of money want to see desperation in the people that they're hiring. So
Great insights. Great insights. That's exactly it. Is that again, like walking in and knowing what it costs you to do a project, right? And then your homeowners can sense desperation and they're going to use it to their advantage. They're not
yeah.
dummies. They're going to negotiate themselves a good deal. And I think a lot of contractors put themselves in the like, well, I have to pay the bills. When I was doing film, I put everything on the line, and you've put everything on the line for Artistry and Tile. This thing either works or it doesn't, and I can't pay my bills if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it was 2009 when I graduated from school, and I wanted to work in reality television and film and do all that fun. Well, I ended up in reality television. I thought I was going to make movies, but I ended up in reality. And so I wasn't making any money. And I said, okay, well, I can pay the internet and I can pay my phone bill and I can pay electric and water. And like that takes care of my family.
Yeah.
And I left off my HOA bill and my mortgage. And I just didn't pay them. And it all ended up working out. But like I was going to I believed in my dream so much, and luckily my wife did as well, that we let it ride. And that was the thing, is like I was like, I'm gonna make this thing work. And it ended up working out, and I got a project and it paid off all that back debt. There was actually a letter that came and said like, hey, we're gonna start foreclosure proceedings by this date. And I was able to have all the money like a week before that or 2 weeks before that.
Nice.
It was. But here's the thing, is I paid off all the HOA debt and all the mortgage debt, and I was back to broke.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then
And then it just kind of feels like you're living paycheck to paycheck again.
and I was. But then I finally there was a show that came to town that gave me my big break, and they were like the show that paid it all off came back to town and ran for like 9 months straight. And then I was able to start building up a savings and stuff because it paid much better and it kept me busy 6 days a week for like 9 months, which was amazing. And I got very, very lucky. I get that, but I think it's because I put that out in the world of like, I'm going to believe in this. And even when I started doing, my own projects, and I got into flooring and I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was like, okay, I can start doing stuff on the weekends. And I was doing doing projects on the weekends, and I knew I wanted to go out on my own, and I pissed my boss off and got fired. And then it was like, well, guess I'm doing it now. And I
Yeah.
just started finding projects, but because I got all the money, I needed less work because there was more in my pocket. And I just kind of, I focused on growing it from there. So you've already said you trust yourself to do this. Like, don't compromise, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say, right? Because you start compromising and then you get frustrated and then you're not making enough at all, that it just keeps compounding on itself. So I'd rather see people say like, no, I value myself too much, and walk away, than not do it, because I think it sets a better standard in the industry. And there's too many
Yeah.
people
And that sets
accepting.
the tone, I think, for yourself and just the way that you are approaching projects in the future. I
Hmm.
can turn that down and that feels really good.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a fine line with that too, because bills do need to be paid. So it's, I think being able to work with the clients also, and especially with this type of work, like I was saying earlier, like I can lower the level of complexity, or I can
Hmm.
take some pieces out, or I can work with you on your budget. Just tell me what that is and what you want to pay, and I can kind of work with that. And I
Yes.
think just having different tools like that to kind of, I don't know, be able to work with all the different types of clients that we work with, because there are so many different types of people out there, and they all have different ideals on what this kind of work is worth, and what they're willing to pay. So
Well, and I think that's the magic, is that you've learned very quickly that it's better to change the scope than it is to accept a lower price. Because even if you accept that lower price, but it still takes you just as long to do it, you're still behind. So it's the same as not taking the project, because you're ending up
Yeah.
with no matter what, you're ending up with not enough money. You either end up with no money and you can go look for something else to provide you money, or you end up with not enough money because it took you too long and it pushed you into next week and it was only enough for 1 week of bills. So
Yep.
people are like, well, some money's better than no money. Well, I disagree. I think no money's better
Yeah.
than some money, because if I end up with some of the money, I've lowered the standard in my area to make it that's the acceptable rate, which means the next one I do is going to be at that level, and the next one, and then
Yeah.
how do you get out of that? If I set the standard as this is what it costs, then it's great. So I love that you're trying to change the scope to meet budgets, as opposed to, well, yeah, I'll just do it for that. And I think that's really
Yeah, I
powerful.
did that once, and I will not be doing that again. I learned my lesson very quickly on that. This last project that I did, it was for a tattoo shop, and it was just little windowsills. And I gave them like three different options off the bat at three different price points. I was like, I'll work within your budget. Here's, what I can offer you. And he kind of thought it was like an all-encompassing price with tile and everything else included. And so having that conversation was a little bit tough, because he's like, well, I'm trying to stick around this range. Can we just like simplify it way down? And I was like, if I could, simplifying it at that point would be doing just bricklaying subway tiles, because that's what that price would be worth at that point.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do the art piece. I wanted to do the little mosaic flower. So I was like, I'll just do it anyways, because, having my piece in a windowsill at a tattoo shop where people are sitting there for hours looking at it, like, I feel like would be good exposure, and also just good practice for myself. So I did it.
Well,
I gained quite a
that's
I
totally
gained
different.
followers from it. Like, I have my business cards out there. I told them, I'll do it, but I would like to, have my cards here so that if people see it and they like it, they can find me.
But you made an exchange on a different level, though, and I think that's where the difference is you saw value in being able to present yourself to people that like art. Obviously, you don't go to a tattoo shop if you don't like art in some way.
Exactly.
So
I knew that there was value in it.
Correct. And so you decided to make the exchange knowing that there's probably a return on the back end, as opposed to, I just have to pay my bills, so I have to accept this rate.
Sure.
That's a totally different mindset from the other way.
True. Yeah. And it worked out, like I gained a few followers from it. And when I met with Mercury Mosaics the other day, I used some of their tile for the project. And she said she was walking past the area and someone was already talking about it to her. And I was like, well, that's cool. And like, people already, it's getting out there and it's getting talked about. So that was really the goal. So I guess I'm happy with it.
That's what matters. And it takes, I knew, like, I had an idea in my head that it would take me 3 years from the time I started Illustrious Hardwoods until it would really have good word of mouth and the phone would ring consistently and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I want to say about 2.5 years in is when I really started feeling the momentum go. And so I think everyone thinks they're just going to be, they're going to blow up and I'm going to start this business and the phone's just going to ring and it's not going to take any hard work and time investment and years. And like, it does. And so just know that, right? Like, it's not going to happen overnight, but you're going to get little whisperings of your snowball gaining momentum and growing in size along the way. And so you're doing the right thing. Now there's people walking by and talking about, mosaics in a tattoo shop's window. And people are, well, that's beautiful. I love that. Like, who did that? One little, snowflake at a time, it's going to grow and snowball and your phone starts ringing more and you get more projects and people can see like, oh, wow, that's super custom. That's creative. That's great. Now there's value on that. So I'm here and this is what it costs. And if you can't do that, well, we can do a regular one, but this stuff is over here.
Yep. Yeah. So I feel like I've been at kind of a disadvantage with how I grew into the trade. Like, I feel like I had my blinders on working with my dad because he wasn't a part of the online community at all. He wasn't going to, coverings or, any of these big events and bringing me with, so I had no exposure to the community, to the resources, to, anything. And all I saw was, okay, word of mouth, that's how I get my business.
Hmm.
And I think that was just trying to break out of that mentality. Obviously, it's been challenging, but I think I'm starting to see the effects of it. So,
There's very few people, I think, professionally anywhere that go outside of what is standard. There's the amount of people that attend coverings is at most 5% of the entire tile community. Same with Tice or anything like that. The amount of the I'll do a small plug here. So the mastermind groups that I do, there are 2,000 people in the Floor Academy Facebook group. I have 15 people in mastermind groups, and I'm looking to start the fourth and get that up and running, and that would put me at 20. So currently, I'm slightly under a 1% conversion rate.
yeah.
The best in the world, well, we all talk about we hate one percenters because they have so much money and data. They're one percenters for a reason.
Yeah.
And the people that compete at the top level in the NBA, the MLB, NFL, any of these sports, my son's a swimmer, the people that get to go to the Olympics, they're the top 1%. They've gone and put in the time and effort to do that. So I don't necessarily think it's having blinders on. I think it's that people just don't want to, it's hard to do the work. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you worry more because now you're having to learn all these new skills. I commend you on it because it is hard. It's absolutely horrifying to go and be like, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong for 20 years. This sucks. It hurts.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to admit
That is
that.
a terrible feeling.
Well, I think that's why all these people I've been doing it 20 years. I never get any callbacks. I'm God's gift to tile.
Yep.
Are you though?
They're
Are
not
you?
calling you back for a reason.
Well,
Once I had
exactly.
that mentality shift, I was like, okay, well, yeah, they're not calling that person back because they did it wrong the first time. Like, that's not a good selling point at the,
Correct.
at this day and age.
At
So,
that, if you've been doing it the same way for 20 years, like, I'm sorry, but you've watched everything change around you. You don't think that
Yeah.
it's changed how you can install tile or LVP or laminate, hardwood, whatever it is, carpet. Like, technology changes. And so you have to grow with it. And the fact that you're out here looking, like, that's the difference. And so, yes, it's hard. It's uncomfortable. It makes you question everything you're doing, but you're probably learning the right skills to move forward and be more successful and have it work out for you in your favor, as opposed to it all falling apart or accepting mediocre and struggling and saying, man, I hate, like, how many people do you see that just like hate being in the trades and they despise it? They tell everyone not to do it. And you're like, well, why are you doing it? Well, it's the only way I know how to pay the bills.
yeah.
It could be so much more rewarding if you would have a different outlook on it. So
And make your life easier. Use some easier products. Stop killing your body. Everything is foam these days. Like, why are you still lifting Duroc into your showers? Stop it.
yeah,
But that's
I mean,
definitely an added challenge. Like, coming into it and like being exposed to this community now, there are so many different manufacturers out there putting out, relatively similar products. So it's like, well, which one do I choose? Which one do I want to use? There's so many options. I'm almost hitting like decision paralysis on like what to start using and implementing in my own business because there are so many options out there.
find the one you like and the people that support you and go from there. You're right. They're all very similar. They all work. These companies don't spend millions of dollars on R&D to not have their product work. Like, very rarely does the product fail because of the manufacturing side and it got by them. Like, it happens. And when it does, they generally own it and take care of it. So for me, it was always who's supporting me. When I call a rep, do they call me back within a reasonable amount of time? When I'm looking to get a question answered, do they answer it? What's the availability like in my area, right? Like, I went with products that made my life easier and I had good relationships with them and they supported me. And the companies that didn't, I didn't use. And when I got asked why, like, I had one of the reps from a distributor of products that I carried would call me constantly. You're not moving my products. You're not doing that. Look, I can't make people pick your products. They pick what they think is pretty. And two, all of your products are significantly more expensive than everything else I'm carrying, even though they're equivalent in many other aspects. So money does matter slightly to people. We've had the conversation on the show, and I constantly say like money doesn't matter, and it doesn't if you can sell it properly and build the value in it. But when there's two brown LVPs and they are very, very, very close, and one's 50 cents a square foot more, I ain't going with the more expensive one. There's no point. So, I've tried to have that. Oh, you got to move my stuff. Come on, help me out, Kyle. Look, I'm not going to force something on anybody. Like, they're going to pick what they pick. And so it's the same thing for us, right? I went with products I enjoyed working with, made my life easier, had good support. And if they were slightly more expensive, again, it's not my money. So I'm going to spend I looked at myself as a steward of my client's finances, and I had to spend it wisely. So it made more sense to spend it with a company that gave me good support as opposed to one that gave me nothing, but their product was slightly cheaper, even though it did the same thing. Like it didn't make sense, because if I needed help, I wasn't going to get it. So I think that when you can look at it that way, it doesn't necessarily become as overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of options. Pick 3 to 5, try them all out, see what you like, what works the best, reach out to the local reps and try and build a relationship, who's available, who's not. And it starts making it a lot more easy of what you want to go with. And some products aren't even available. There's a product that I would love to use in my market. It's a pain in the butt to get because it has to all be custom ordered. And so while I love it and I've used it and it works great, availability sucks. And so it's off the table because I'm not going to deal with when I need it, and it has to be readily available. I can't wait another 2 or 3 days. So if that's the case, oh well, like you can tell the rep, man, hey, I need this. Go push it more with them so that they actually stock it as opposed to not. And it's on the rep to do it.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think I need to have a little bit of a filtering system on, some of the products and using those metrics like, can I get it today? Can I get it within a couple days? Can I get help on this stuff? Definitely.
So it's not, I think what this conversation does, and I think that the big takeaway for you should be, we've been able to spend an hour and 15 minutes now having you step back and not be as an installer. We get a 12-inch view generally because we're right there. We're doing it, right? And so when you only have that 12-inch view of your business, you're concerned with, I have to produce to make money. We've spent an hour and 15 minutes taking a step back and getting 1,000-foot, 10,000-foot view of your business and looking at it from a much larger perspective. That's the takeaway is you're so worried about all these minute things, but it's because you're focused in so closely on that minute thing. If you stop, take the step back, look at the whole big picture and start thinking about it, the decisions become much easier to do. And that's one of the things I've realized is that enough people, like, you just take the 15 minutes a day to step back and stop and say, okay, what happened in artistry and tile today? What worked? What didn't work? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And just spend 15 minutes very, very removed from everything.
Yeah.
And now I don't think it'll overwhelm you as much because you're able to start seeing the things and you start realizing that you'll see that you have like 5 problems and there's 5 fires to put out. But if you can step back, a lot of times those fires are created from one singular point. So if you go fix that, you put out 5 fires at once instead of dealing with them each individually. And then you can make it not happen again in the future. But
so true.
You're going to get stressed and then you get caught up and you hone in and you're, I got to fix this.
Yeah.
Take a breath, step back, relax. And I think that'll help you moving forward. That it helps even out the roller coaster when you can step back as opposed to being on the ride and like up and down and up and down and stressed and not stressed and so happy and then frustrated to all get like, it's okay.
It definitely does help to step back. And I think like I've been writing stuff down more now too, just like at night, because that's when like my mind goes crazy and I'm just like, okay, get it all on paper, look at it tomorrow. Don't even worry about it now. Can't do anything about it now. It's in the middle of the night. Like, what are you going to do? Make phone calls? No.
There you go.
So write it down, deal with it when you're in a better mindset. So
yes,
I've been working on all of that, but
good.
It's just when you're getting started out, it's a lot to think about all at once. And I think, it's impossible not to be overwhelmed by it at some times. And but like you said, just
Well, pick and
taking a
choose your
step back
battles.
in the bigger picture.
Well, and pick and choose your battles, right? You don't necessarily have to be worried about how do I schedule things right now. You need to be worried about how do I get work. Don't worry about scheduling 5 projects until you have 5 projects. Like you have to
I'm like
learn
thinking about
that skill.
how do I build my website? I'm like, why am I even thinking about that right now? I don't have anything to put on a website to build, you know? Like
Correct. Like pick and choose where you're at. Do the thing. Like again, when you step back, you should be able to hone in on what you can see will make the biggest difference next. And you just tackle them one by one, and you can start knocking them out. But you're like, I got to do this, I got to do that. Oh, everyone's talking about this, I got to have that. Your business is your business, and it's as unique as you are, and you're an individual. So do the thing that's going to like make sense to you for your style. Like you get to run a business the way Natalie runs a business, and Kyle gets to run a business the way Kyle runs a business. Now, business is business, and we all need to follow the same kind of set of rules and laws and all of that. But how you get to the end result is going to be totally different than how I do it. But having, knowing how people do it, which is why you gain value from listening, and I appreciate that you do, is because you're able to get those takeaways and say like, oh, I like that. Let me put Natalie's twist on it.
Pulling little pieces out of everyone's methods.
Don't get hung up on now. Step back, find the thing, pick one thing, go do that thing. Step back, pick another thing. So you'll be okay. Yeah. Don't worry about what's going to happen 3 years down the road. Worry about, I mean, you got to have a vision, but knock them out in order, right? I think a lot of times and build backwards. Like, so figure out where you want to be at in 3 years and then break that down into, you know, what is 1/3 of accomplishing that. There's your 1 year. Yep. And then I have people like in the mastermind groups, I'll then have them break that 1 year goal into 4 simple steps. Because there's your quarterly goals. Every 3 months you have to accomplish one of those steps. And then there's, if you break down the quarterly goal, you can break it down into 6 steps. And every 2 weeks you got to hit one of those steps. And so now you have these itty bitty micro baby steps of, okay, I get 2 weeks to do this thing, but over a quarter it accomplishes a bigger thing. And over a year it accomplishes this really big thing. Yeah. But now it's not overwhelming. Because I had little baby steps all along. I just have to do this little breadcrumb this week. I just have to do this little breadcrumb this week. So much easier. Yeah. So there is some planning, but the fact you're looking at it and thinking about it, this puts you light years ahead of most other people, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. It definitely helps to think about it in baby steps. So I'll definitely have to start actually writing those down and figuring out where I want to go next and what I want to focus on in the next couple weeks, quarter, this year, that kind of stuff. So
there you go. And getting it out of your head is huge too. That helped me when I actually started writing my schedule out and when deliveries had to happen and it wasn't all inside. Made a huge difference because I was like trying to keep track of everything and it was driving me nuts. I was like, I don't have to waste energy here anymore because I got it out. Which
it's like I can do it. I could, but it's it's costing me a lot more energy and time than I should be expending on scheduling.
Yep.
So.
And I think there's we didn't talk about it and we kind of need to wrap things up here. I think there is value in you having shorter days and like you could probably need to remember that you're not getting as much done because you do only have a 6.5 hour day. You get from 9 to 3:30. You're not getting 8 hours, right? You got a kid to take care of. But I think even in having that discussion of like, hey, I really want to do your project. I love doing this, but I do have other commitments and I have to be able to take care of my son and I can be here by like 9:15 to start and I got to leave by 3:15. Like, so you only get me for 6 hours and I know it's a little shorter and it might take me a little longer. Who can't respect someone that wants to take care of their kid? Like if you can't, that was always my thing. People would be like, what time do you want to start? Oh, I start at 7. Oh, that's early. Yeah, but I want to get off at 3 so I can go home and like help my kids with homework and have dinner with them. Yeah. And if somebody ever told me like, that's unacceptable, that I don't want to work for you. Like that doesn't, right? Like that told me right there is a huge like priorities difference between us and I don't like where your values are at. And so we're not a good fit for each other. And nobody ever had a problem with it, but It's one of those things, like
Communicating it.
use your life and your values as a way to suss out who's a good fit for you and not. If they don't, if they truly value you, they're going to put up with whatever you set as the standard of, this is how Artistry and Tile does business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Confidence. Yes. The business sets the standard. You go bid it, and you can do it confidently because that's the way that Artistry and Tile needs to operate.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Anything like you want to add or have a question about before we gotta get out of here?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered everything that I wanted to. So a lot of great insights on your part too. So
appreciate that.
Thank you again for having me. You're
welcome. I hope it wasn't nearly as bad as you thought it would be and built it up to be in your head.
It does just feel like me and you here. So for anyone else who's nervous to get on here, it's not as scary as it is, seems like.
That's the best review I can ask for. Is like, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It really is just like, yes, it goes out on Facebook and people are going to listen to it. I would like to think I do a decent job of breaking down the boundaries and making you feel comfortable, and that we get it's just us having a conversation about your business, and you are an expert at your business. That's what matters.
Yeah.
So.
No, that was great.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the insights. Go check out Artistry and Tile. All right. Look her up. No, there is no website yet.
No website yet. That's
we got the Instagram though, right?
Instagram, Facebook.
Okay. There you go.
Yep, those are my
Artistry and Tile, Facebook, Instagram. Go check her out. She's got cool stuff coming. She's only going to have cooler stuff because people are going to hire her to do more and more, and you're going to be jealous. And then you're going to be asking Natalie in like 2 years, how did you grow to be able to sell all of this stuff? And she's going to be giving out all the tips and tricks. That's what's going to happen. We're going to watch it. So, all right. What do we got? Go check out flooracademypod.com. Go to the shop, pick up a t-shirt or, a hoodie, some other type of swag. That way you can let everybody know how awesome this show is. You can help support the show over at patreon.com/Floor Academy. And we got a quick word from Tice. Stay connected, continue discovering, learn more, and network. Now available, you will want to access the International Surface Events new resource library. Flip through the digital pages of the Tice resource books to source products, take tailored journeys through Tice event offerings, or watch, rewind, and share Tice recorded content from the event. Available now online at intlsurfaceevent.com or click on the link in the show notes. You'll even see this podcast featured inside the Tice 2024 textbook, offering select recordings from this year's amazing event in Las Vegas. And let's see, this is coming out in April? Man, that's like 8 months. You guys got to get your stuff together. Go put it on your calendar for next year. Book it out. Block it off. Otherwise, you're not going. Come on out and network and see what the industry has to offer. It's great at exposing you to where the industry is headed materials wise, but it's even better for who you get to meet and the things you can learn. You don't know what connection you're going to make that can absolutely change the trajectory of your life and business. That's all we got for this week. Thanks for joining us, and I look forward to catching you all next time.